Let's do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X__ Jonathan Smith, to follow me there and watch the show there. And, of course, the Indy Sports Ticket app and 1430 AM are two great ways to listen as well. Big show today. Colts play the Cardinals on Sunday. I think a lot of people look at that 2-3 Cardinals record. They see that 6.5-point spread. They're like, Colts cruise. Cardinals are good. I've got the numbers to back that up. Dusty Harrah is the sideline reporter for Oregon. He's going to join the show at 11:20 today to start getting you ready for Indiana versus Oregon on Saturday. Biggest game of Indiana's, first half of the season. We'll see how big that Penn State game is later on in the year. But big game Saturday. Dusty's got all that you need to know about Oregon. So, yeah, those are the two big things today. I've also got a Colts take I'm excited to get off my chest. Injury updates. The North Carolina and Bill Belichick stuff is not surprising at all. If we have time, I'll get to that and the Major League Baseball playoffs as well. The only thing you need to know about the Major League Baseball playoffs is that the Chicago Cubs are still alive. And they can definitely win that series. Probably not, but hey, I'm just trying to be optimistic. All right. Arizona Cardinals, they're making the trip here to the beautiful, beautiful Midwest on Sunday to play this juggernaut of a Colts team. And I've got a buddy. His name's Colt. We love Colt. Colt really likes Star Wars. Colt likes Star Wars more than anyone I've ever met. And you could argue he maybe likes it more than he should. He's seen all the movies, seen all the TV shows. And he's even read, there's like extra books that you can read about specific characters in Star Wars. He's read them. For me, that's where I draw the line. I'll watch the movies. I'll watch the shows. Read the books, though. I'm not a nerd, And I got to be honest, I think it's cool. I like that he likes Star Wars that much because when I have a Star Wars question, I'm like, hey, man, what's up with this? He always has the answer. He always does. It's a really nice thing. I like the Arizona Cardinals more than everyone else, and more than I probably should. I've watched every game that they've played this year. They're like my designated 405 team, and I love the roster. And you like that I like the Cardinals because the Colts play them on Sunday, and I'm the best guy here in Indy to listen to talk about them. I can answer pretty much any question you have about Arizona. And one of them is probably, Jonathan, why do you like the 2-3 Arizona Cardinals? It's a fantastic question. Let me ask you a question. Have you seen the roster? The roster's good. The roster's a little banged up, but the roster is good. Kyler Murray, slightly above average quarterback, like low tier 2, high tier 3 kind of guy when we look at, the NFL landscape. Marvin Harrison Jr. had like a bad 2 games. Everyone's like, oh, he's terrible. It's not true. Marvin Harrison Jr. still a really good player. I like Michael Wilson, their other wide receiver. I like Zay Jones in the slot. Trey McBride's one of the best 5 tight ends in football. Paris Johnson Jr. is an elite left tackle. Froholt's a solid center. Jonah Williams at right tackle's a solid player as well. So there's a lot to like on the offensive side of the football. And then you get to the defensive side of the football, and it's just more players that it's hard not to like. Josh Sweat. He should have been the Super Bowl MVP last year, but he doesn't play quarterback. So, that's just kind of how that works. Calais Campbell. He's 39 years old or however old he is, and he's still getting it done. Mac Wilson Sr., really good linebacker. I like Zaven Collins as well. Will Johnson, rookie corner out of Michigan. I got a lot of thoughts on him. He's a little banged up, so I'm going to go a little more in depth on him. Budda Baker's just been one of the best safeties in football for 5 years now. Max Melton, another really good corner. I like Jonathan Gannon. I know people don't like him right now because he yelled at his player on the sideline, but to that I say let's toughen up a little bit, you know. So I like the roster. They're 2-3. And when people see that, they're like, 2-3. They're not very good. All three of their losses, very winnable. There's a theme here as I run through them that I hope that you pick up on. They lost to the Seattle Seahawks on Thursday Night Football on a game-winning field goal as time expired. Now, Seattle, clearly the better team there, but Arizona gave themselves a chance in that game. They also lost to the San Francisco 49ers, 15-13, on a game-winning field goal as time expired. Mac Jones led a game-winning drive after taking a safety. It was 13-13. That Arizona Cardinals defense got it done, safety. And then the Cardinals needed one first down. They couldn't get it done. Bada bing, bada boom. They lose on a last-second field goal to Mac Jones and the San Francisco 49ers. Last week, they blew a big fourth-quarter lead to the Titans, in which they lost 22-21. And all sorts of weird things happened. They dropped the football at the goal line on like a 61-yard touchdown run, or what could have been a touchdown run. They drop it at the 1, and ball rolls out of the back of the end zone. Ball goes back to Tennessee, right? That touchdown would have made the game 28-6, but, it didn't. They picked off Cam Ward later in the game. As the linebacker's falling to the ground, he fumbles the football. The ball kicks into the Titans' end zone. Tyler Lockett recovers for a touchdown. So now it's 19-21. It's like, oh no. And then Titans go for 2, and they don't get it. And then Cam Ward throws a beautiful ball to Calvin Ridley on their final drive of the game, puts them in field goal range, and the Titans win on a last-second field goal. Yes, the Cardinals are 2-3, but they could be 5-0 if they don't lose 3 games on 3 last-second field goals. They are a couple of plays away from being 4-1 or 3-2 at a minimum, or maybe even 5-0. I don't know. Once again, Seattle clearly the better team in that game. But oh man, are they a great team? No, I don't think they're a great team. I think great teams make those couple of different plays that they didn't make in order to win games, and they obviously didn't do that. But they are capable of beating anyone. I like their defense. They're 12th in takeaways per game, they're averaging a little over 1 takeaway per game on the year. They're 7th in third down defense. This is a defense that gets off the field on third down, and they've been doing this with both of their corners not playing games. The pass rush isn't great, but the secondary keeps finding a way. It kind of feels through these first few games a little like Lou Anarumo, where I do think that Lou Anarumo is doing more with this defense than he should be capable of, because this Colts defense just lacks talent. Like, there's obviously like some good players, but top to bottom, it's not a great defense. Right now for the Cardinals, same thing, but it's because of injuries. There is a lot of talent on the defense. They just have important players that are hurt. And Jonathan Gannon, Cardinals head coach, is just kind of finding a way through, exotic looks and schemes and pressures to get his team off the field. He's going to give Daniel Jones a ton to look at this week. Okay, so are they a great team? No, but there are things to like on the defensive side of the football. Josh Sweat is a premier pass rusher. He's got 5 sacks in 5 games. Once again, it's a guy who I think should have won the Super Bowl MVP last year. He had like 2.5 sacks at halftime. Calais Campbell has 3 sacks on the year, and then no one else has more than 1. All right, so they've really only got 2 guys that you have to pay attention to in terms of the pass rush. I think that this Colts offensive line is going to be fine handling Josh Sweat. Bernard Ryman and Braden Smith are both having really nice starts to the year. I don't know if you've seen the tape. If you have 2 minutes, you can go find like a 2-minute video over on X of Braden Smith blocking Max Crosby one-on-one last week, just like stonewalling him consistently. It's really impressive stuff. So with both Colts tackles having really good years, at least good starts to the year, then I feel pretty good about them holding down Josh Sweat in the front four of the Arizona Cardinals. So they should be fine protecting Daniel Jones. Now, the Colts had a lot of success against a borderline great, let's call them very good, against a very good Broncos defense, right? 29 points. That is the most that the Broncos have given up defensively all year. And that was against a pretty healthy Broncos team as well, might I add. And so, like, as soon as I saw the Colts do that, it's like, yeah, like I'm going to have faith in this offense to run the football and to, be efficient on third down all year, because we saw them do it against what I would argue is the most talented defense in football. So saw them do it at home as well. And because I saw that, I feel really good about this Colts offense, even though I do like this Cardinals defense, and this Cardinals defense is fourth in the NFL in points per game allowed right now, which is weird. Because usually teams that don't give up very many points in this very offensive era of the NFL, usually those teams aren't 2-3. But I'm telling you, this Cardinals team, they are not losing games because of their defense. They're losing games because their offense just hasn't been good enough. It's just the very simple reality of it. Like when you go through their schedule, like they beat the Saints, who aren't very good, 20-13. Like you're only scoring 20 on that Saints defense. They then beat the Panthers 27-22. That's a good offensive day. It's a good offensive day. And then they lose to the 49ers 16-15. Look, I get it. 49ers defense is really good, but you can only manage to score 15 points. And then they lose to Seattle. Once again, I know another defense that's really good. They lose to Seattle 23-20. You only scored 20 points. 14 of them came in the fourth quarter. And then you lose to the Titans 22-21. I get it. They should have had 28. But still, you only scored 21 against that Titans defense, which gave up 34 to the Colts offense. I know they scored 41, but 7 of them obviously came off of the Kenny Moore pick 6 in that game. This Arizona Cardinals offense is not very good, and it all starts with Kyler Murray, because Kyler Murray hasn't been very good, and you know what else hasn't been very good? Their run game. Kyler Murray is struggling, and they can't run the football. That is a recipe to have a bad offense. And part of that is injuries. Kyler Murray is their leading rusher right now. Part of that is because their top 2 running backs, Trey Benson and James Conner, are both out with injuries. Their current running back can't be trusted because he's the one who dropped the football before crossing the goal line last week against the Tennessee Titans. Okay, they're 8th in the NFL in yards per carry, and usually that's a good sign. But a lot of that has to do with Kyler Murray scrambling. They can't run the football. That's not good. Well, that's good for the Colts. It's bad for them. Like James Conner, their lead back, a guy who's been so good in the NFL for such a long time. He was averaging 3 yards per carry before he got hurt. His longest rush of the year was 12 yards. They don't have a player averaging more than 40 rushing yards per game. Trey Benson is at 40 yards a game. That's it. They cannot run the football, and that is great news for the Colts because that run defense is horrific. Kyler Murray hasn't been very good either. He's 22nd in total EPA in the NFL, which is like estimated points added, right? Even if you don't know what that means, even if you don't know what that stat means, you don't need to for this next stat. Kyler Murray has started every game for the Cardinals, all right? He missed a few snaps here and there against the Titans. Listen to this. He's 22nd in total EPA. Backup quarterback Andy Dalton, who's played 7 plays all year, has a higher total EPA than Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray has been bad this year. If I mean, it's horrific. That's terrible. He scrambles the fifth most of any quarterback in the NFL. And I don't think it's necessarily because his offensive line is bad. As I said earlier, Paris Johnson Jr., one of the best offensive tackles in the NFL, period. He just abandons the pocket really quickly. And when you do that, you're going to scramble more and you're going to open yourself up to more sacks. He gets sacked he's been sacked on 8% of his dropbacks so far this year. That is the seventh highest mark in the NFL. He's 24th in success rate this year. So he's not keeping the Cardinals on schedule. This has been such a big number for Daniel Jones this year. I keep going back to success rate because success rate basically tells you, or it answers the question of, are you keeping the offense on schedule when you're dropping back to throw the football? And Kyler Murray is not. He's also 28th in yards per attempt this year. So everything that Daniel Jones is doing well, Kyler Murray is struggling at. The decision-making isn't there. The explosive plays when available aren't there. He's not keeping the offense on schedule. This should be a very fun day for this Indianapolis Colts defense. It should be. Not saying that it will be, but it should be. The Cardinals defense has given the Cardinals chances to win games all year. And so I'm actually very excited to watch this Colts offense play against this Cardinals defense because it's been one of the best in football to start the year. The issue for Arizona, their offense just hasn't taken advantage of that, and this Colts defense has to ensure that continues to be what happens. Kyler Murray, to be fair to the Cardinals and Kyler Murray is a better player than how he's started the season. It's tough when your team can't run the football. With that being said, I've seen Kyler Murray find success before when his team couldn't run the ball. We saw it in Arizona when Cliff Kingsbury was their head coach. He's got the weapons to be successful, but this Colts defense is going to do an excellent job of making things tough, okay? Because Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, Greg Dortch, and Zay Jones, it's a good group, but it's also not like what the Rams have, you know? That being said, it's also definitely better than what the Raiders have, or what the Raiders ran out there last week, missing both of their starting tight ends. So I think we're going to get a better idea this week of just how good Jonathan Edwards and Mekhi Blackmon are, because they're going to be out on the perimeter, probably having to deal with Zay Jones or Greg Dortch, two guys that, especially Dortch. Dortch is just blazing fast. He's so much fun. Anyway, you'll see him return kicks as well. So it's a better group. So I think we are going to get a better idea of how good Jonathan Edwards and Mekhi Blackmon are on Sunday. I'm excited to just see how these two defenses line up because both Lou Anarumo and Jonathan Gannon, the two guys that call the defenses in this game, like they're just weird. And they show different things and they drop defensive linemen into coverage and all those things. And they'll show blitz and then they'll drop out and they'll show no blitz and then they'll send a corner. And it's fascinating to me. I really enjoy it. So I think Lou Anarumo is going to do to Kyler Murray what he's done to every other quarterback that they've played so far. He's going to show Kyler Murray different looks. And if he makes a mistake, the Colts will probably take advantage of it. Like they've done a good job of that in every game this year, except for that game against the Rams. Okay. I know that Kyler Murray didn't practice yesterday. All right. And that's, an important piece of this game. With that being said, he exited the game in the third quarter against the Titans, and he came back in, and he finished the game. So I would be very surprised if Kyler Murray doesn't play on Sunday, okay, because I think he's going to be healthy enough to play, and the new Call of Duty game hasn't come out quite yet. We still got a few weeks until that happens. So that is the biggest injury of note for the Cardinals, Kyler Murray, but they've got several other guys that were limited or did not practice. I've got that list for you and the importance of it in 4 minutes.
package at noon. The Real Jonathan Smith Show. Now, this is Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app. Usually you can listen to the Dan Dockett Show on that app, but he is off today and tomorrow. The Colts are not off, though. They're getting ready for the Arizona Cardinals to come into town, and I can't wait for this game. Can't wait. The Arizona Cardinals, that 2-3 record does not show how good this football team is. They've lost all 3 of their games on 3 last-second field goal attempts. So they're just a couple of plays away every game from winning. And they've got quite a bit of injuries going on. Defensive lineman Darius Robinson didn't practice yesterday. Kyler Murray didn't practice yesterday because of his foot. Kyler Murray's going to play. He finished the game against the Titans. He got hurt in the third quarter, played the entire fourth. I will say, he did not scramble once in that fourth quarter. So while I do think he's going to play, I do think it is noteworthy or worth examining how much he scrambles in this game. As I said earlier, he scrambles the 5th most of any quarterback in the NFL when you look at his scramble percentage. So he wants to run. I want to see how mobile he is in the game on Sunday. Darius Robinson, he didn't practice. He didn't play against the Titans last week. He's got a pectoral issue. If you've done anything to your chest, I'll never forget my high school baseball coach, the assistant, tore his pec. It's nasty, man. He couldn't do anything for quite some time. So we'll monitor. We'll see whether or not Darius Robinson is going to play this week. They had an offensive lineman who didn't practice. That was due to rest, so he's going to play. After that, though, a ton of limited participants. I'm not going to go through all of them because I don't want to waste your time. Here are the 2 that really matter. Both of their starting corners were limited participants. Will Johnson is a rookie out of Michigan. He was the top-rated corner until he didn't run at the combine. He is the Tyler Warren of defensive players in this year's draft. He is a very good football player. When he's played, which is 3 games for the Cardinals, he has been very good. Just go, like, if you just saw him play at Michigan, then like you knew he was going to be a stud. No way around it. The other guy who didn't practice, Max Melton, their other starting corner. Okay, he's got a hamstring issue, right? He didn't play against the Titans either. It'd be great if they both missed. Be amazing. Would love that for the Colts and their offense. But I'm assuming that they're both going to be back. Neither one's on IR. Melton got hurt in practice, probably like a Latu hamstring situation thing where you tweak it in practice. They hold you out for a game just to be sure you're cool, and then you play the following week. Will Johnson's missed the last 2 games. I'm assuming that he's going to be back this week. So those are the 2 important Cardinal players that are banged up. And, we'll kind of see what happens from there. Mac Wilson Jr., he's their best linebacker, or senior, Mac Wilson Sr. He's their best linebacker. He was also limited. And they have 2 starting offensive linemen that were limited as well. Once again, we'll kind of get a better idea today of who's going to play on Sunday and who's not. These are just the Wednesday injury reports. I'm going to run through the Colts injuries, and then I've got a couple of questions that were asked on YouTube and X that I will answer. For the Colts, I love the injury sheet. I love it. It looks almost clean, right? There's 6 guys on there. Tyler Goodson, backup running back. He's still dealing with a groin. Tyquan Lewis didn't practice yesterday because he was sick. I'm assuming he's not going to be sick on Sunday. Kenny Moore, he's obviously on there with his Achilles. I think he's supposed to practice today. We'll kind of see whether or not he gets back out there. Alec Pierce has still not. He's still in concussion protocol. It's incredibly annoying, but he's still, he was a full participant though. Braden Smith didn't practice. He just was resting. And then Grover Stewart, who hurt his bicep in the game on Sunday against the Raiders, he was a full participant. So two of the guys that didn't practice yesterday for the Colts, one was sick, one was just resting. And then the other two, obviously, Kenny Moore's really important, but Tyler Goodson, he's the second or third string running back. They'll be fine without him for another week if he doesn't play. So another very nice week of injuries for the Colts. Hopefully, Alec Pierce can clear concussion protocol. Like, it's been over 2 weeks now. Like, let's go, man. Like, let's clear this. Grover Stewart being a full participant, that's great news. The Colts desperately need him in the middle. And then the rest of the injuries for the Colts, not surprising or overly concerning. Timothy Bowman, just asking questions every day. It's awesome. If you want to tweet at me, it's at __ Jonathan Smith. You can ask me any and all questions over on the X. He said, what would it take for Indiana Jones or Jonathan Taylor to win the MVP and for Tyler Warren to win Offensive Rookie of the Year? I think it'd take quite a bit for Daniel Jones to win MVP. Josh Allen's having a really good year. Baker Mayfield, when people realize how banged up that Buccaneers roster is, he's going to have a real chance to win it. Sam Darnold's been awesome in Seattle. So, I mean, he's going to have to continue playing as well as he has, and he's going to have to hope that some of these guys kind of start to fall off a little bit. Lamar Jackson as well. Like, if he comes back and fixes all of the Ravens' issues, then he'll be someone that he has to deal with. Patrick Mahomes is having an awesome year as well. Like, the reason why they're losing games, it's not because of Mahomes and the offense. It's because they just can't generate a pass rush. So he's going to have to contend with Mahomes as well. He's just going to have to continue to be consistent. Like, it's more than 10. The last 10 or more MVPs in the NFL have been the starting quarterbacks of teams of either the 1 or 2 seed in the AFC or NFC. So if he wants to win the MVP, the Colts are going to have to win like 13 games. That has to happen as well. Jonathan Taylor, I don't think he's going to win MVP. Decent chance, though, that he wins Offensive Player of the Year. I think that is much, much more likely. And for him, he just has to stay healthy. It's the biggest thing for him, which, if he keeps not having to play in the fourth quarter, then I like his chances of staying healthy and contending for Offensive Player of the Year. The other issue is Puka Nacua is playing really, really well. So you're going to have to kind of hope that he slows down. Puka Nacua is on pace to break Calvin Johnson's receiving yards record, and he's on pace to, I think, break the receptions record. He's got like 50 catches in, like the first 5 weeks. Shout out to Xavier Howard for allowing that to happen. So, so he just really needs for Puka Nacua to slow down, and he just needs to stay healthy. And then what was the last one here? Tyler Warren to win Rookie of the Year. Keep doing what he's doing, right? Leading tight ends in receiving yards right now, but he's also going to have to hope that Emeka Egbuka, rookie wide receiver for the Buccaneers, you got to hope that he slows down a little bit. I would think that he would, just as, Chris Godwin just came back from injury. As he kind of ramps up, some of the targets will go to him. If the Buccaneers have it their way, they'll have Mike Evans, Emeka Egbuka, and Chris Godwin all healthy at once. When that happens, his targets will drop a little bit then as well. So if Tyler Warren just kind of keeps this pace and he leads all tight ends in receiving yards at the end of the year, then I think you got to feel pretty good about him winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. And then Indy Jarhead asked 2 questions. Ooh, thank you, Indy Jarhead, for asking 2 questions. Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there, subscribe, and you can throw questions in there as well. He said, is Russell Wilson a Hall of Famer? The answer is yes, absolutely. What do the Yankees need to add to win the World Series? Okay. Russell Wilson, I would argue he's a Hall of Famer. He had 10 really good years. And that's kind of my litmus test for a lot of these guys. Like, how long are you really good for? And he was really good for a full decade. I understand that his time in Denver wasn't great, but that's also post-prime. Like he turned 34 when he went to Denver and became the starter. And so, like, after his prime, he hasn't been very good. And I don't think that should necessarily be held against him. And then all of his time in Seattle, like, I mean, geez, like the dude, and by the way, he was a Pro Bowler last year somehow. But like all of his time in Seattle, he was really good. They won a bunch of games. He threw for 1,000,000 yards. He threw a bunch of touchdowns. He should be in the Hall of Fame. The thing working against him that may keep him out is people don't like him. And that matters. Like, no one showed up. He didn't have a single teammate when he got married. He didn't have a single teammate show up at his wedding. That's like concerning because you're the quarterback. We all heard or if you didn't see it, there's this viral clip of Richard Sherman and Tony Gonzalez just ripping Russell Wilson, saying he's playing himself out of the Hall of Fame and all these things. And I don't know if that's necessarily true or not, but I will say that he should be in. All that time in Seattle was incredible. And with a prime like that and a Super Bowl, it's hard for me to not give you the nod and put you in the Hall of Fame. So I believe that he is, but the fact that no one likes him might work against him. What do the Yankees need to add to win the World Series? Oh, geez. I haven't watched them all year. So it's my opinion on this may sound a little ill-informed, and that's because it is. With that being said, my biggest issue with New York and a lot of teams in baseball, and even though I hate the Brewers like right now, I do like watching the Brewers because they don't strike out. And when you have teams like the Yankees, who I would argue are very home run dependent, it is very hard to win the World Series because when you enter into the playoffs, you're not facing teams that have bad pitching. So Judge hit 53 home runs. They had two other guys who hit more than 30. Bellinger hit 29, and then they had three other guys hit more than 20, and Volpe hit 19. It is a very home run dependent batting lineup. And we talk a lot about pitching in the playoffs and these things. But hitting, I think, is what wins. The ability to hit good pitching. And how do guys hit home runs? The majority of them hit home runs on mistake pitches. Unless you're Aaron Judge, right? One of the best hitters in baseball. Fun fact, Aaron Judge, he hit 400 on balls that he swung at in the strike zone this year. That's incredible. That is 60 points higher than the next closest guy, Bo Bichette. So, back to the Yankees. Outside of Judge, the guys that are hitting home runs are hitting home runs on mistake pitches. When you play teams in the playoffs, it's usually the teams with really good pitching, and they're not throwing their fourth or fifth starter. They're throwing their ace, their second best starter, their third best starter, and then there's a bullpen game. And all of these teams, not all of them, a lot of these teams in the playoffs have extremely good bullpens. And so if you have a lineup constructed with this idea of, it's 318 down the left field line, 314 down the right field line, we're just going to hit a bunch of homers, and that's how we're going to win games. Like, you're not winning the World Series that way because the pitching is just too good. You're not going to get enough mistake pitches to generate enough runs to win on a consistent basis. It's why the Brewers are so good right now. Like, they're not mashing homers. Like, they have guys who can obviously do that, but like 1 through 9, they have guys who can just hit a single off of a great pitcher. They put the ball in play, the Brewers did, more than any other team in baseball this year. And you know what else happened for the Brewers? They had more errors committed against them than anybody else. It's because they actually had the ability to put the ball in play. And they weren't, dropping the back shoulder, riding the back leg, just trying to launch the baseball out of the yard. And when I watch the Yankees, it's a lot of, I'm going to drop the back shoulder, I'm going to try to launch the ball out of the yard. And you're not winning a World Series that way when 5 of the 9 guys in your lineup, that's their goal. And so I think it's a roster reconstruction thing. Like, they have to go find guys who, instead of hitting 230 and hitting 34 home runs like Trent Grisham did for them this year in center field, they need more guys who are going to hit like 275 with 18 home runs. That's their issue. There's not enough balance in their lineup, and then pitching is always a thing that can improve. So, that's kind of a Yankees thing. It's also just a baseball thing in general. Like when you look at the Brewers, you could argue they're playing better than anyone else right now. Like 1-9. Like obviously Yelich is a guy who has had a history of really hitting for power and those things. But like outside of him, like when you work through their lineup, I'm pulling it up right now. Like it's a lot of dudes who just put the ball in play and consistently hit the ball hard without trying to hit a home run. Like Christian Yelich led them in homers this year with 29. They didn't have a single guy on their team hit 30 home runs this year. But you know what else they have? A bunch of guys that hit for average. Vaughn, who only, to be fair, only played in 64 games, he hit 308. Okay, they have 4 guys hitting over 270. 270 to me, that's the new 300 with how good these pitchers are now. Right? And then like they've got a bunch of dudes hitting over 260. And so on. And they don't strike out. Like it's amazing. Like something that will always work in Major League Baseball is consistently just putting the ball in play and consistently finding a barrel. Right? If you consistently barrel the baseball and you don't strike out, and that's like a theme of your roster 1-9, then you're going to win a lot of games. And that's all that the Brewers have done this year. And then, the Dodgers, for them, they're a little different. There's definitely a little more juice in their lineup, right? Shohei Ohtani is, he's hitting 50 homers a year. But after that, they don't have another guy who hit 30 home runs. Like Freddie Freeman only hit 24. Mookie Betts only hit 20. Pages, he hit 27. And then when you look at their averages, it's just a lot of dudes who consistently put the ball in play and hit for average. And that works against aces because guys who hit for average can hit tough pitches. Guys who hit for power tend to not hit tough pitches. It's just kind of how it is. So, anyway, that's my very long baseball rant. I don't talk a ton of baseball, but if you can't tell, very, very passionate about not striking out. I'm also very passionate about the Colts' run defense because I don't think it's very good, and it needs to be better. I've got a take on the importance of DeForest, Buckner, and Grover Stewart. It looks like Bill Belichick is going to get bought out mid-season by North Carolina. I've got thoughts on that. Dusty Harrah, sideline reporter for Oregon football. He's going to join the show coming up at 11:20, and we're going to kind of get you ready for Indiana versus Oregon. But my thoughts on DeForest, Buckner, and Grover Stewart's injury and why he needs to play Sunday in 4 minutes.
Monday, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back. Oh, wait, excuse me. Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, you can also watch the show over on X__Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM. Dusty Harrah, Oregon football sideline reporter. He is joining the show here in about 35 minutes. Maybe, if my math's right. Yeah. About 35 minutes to talk Oregon versus IU on Saturday. But Cardinals, Colts, that game is happening on Sunday as I continue to break it down for you. DeForest Buckner, not DeForest Buckner. Grover Stewart hurt his bicep on Sunday, and as soon as I saw that, I was like, that's not good. He's kind of important, especially to the Colts' run defense. So in the morning, I drink this supplement. It's called AG1. It's disgusting. It's nasty. I do not like it. And it's just like this green powder, and you mix it with water. And I would mix it with water, and I would terrible. Disgusting. So after like a week, I look at my wife. I'm like, can we mix this with anything, with literally anything else? And so now I mix it with apple juice. And it doesn't taste good, but it's not nasty. That's what DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart do to this run defense. Without them, it's amongst the worst in the NFL. With them, it's not good. But it's also not amongst the worst in the NFL. The Colts are 18th in NFL yards per carry allowed this year, which is, not good, but it's not amongst the worst in football. And they're 12th in rushing yards per game allowed, which is good, but that's really just happening because they've blown teams out. Like when the Dolphins only run the football 8 times, like that's going to bring that average down quite a bit, right? And, the Raiders threw the football a bunch last week as they're, trying to get back into the game and so on. And so with DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart, the Colts are 18th in yards per carry allowed. That is, below average, but it's survivable, right? Because this offense continues to score so many points and apply pressure with their offense. And these close games are still kind of concerning to me. Like when teams actually have the option to run the football, that is going to be problematic for the Colts. I don't think that that's going to be a problem this week. But like Kyron Williams with the Rams averaged 6 yards per carry against the Colts. J.K. Dobbins with the Broncos averaged 5.5 yards per carry against the Colts in that game in week 2. So this week shouldn't be a big deal because the Cardinals have struggled to run the football a lot. And, their 2 best running backs are both hurt. That helps as well. But going forward, though, Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner, like they have to stay healthy, and it's good that they're both still on their feet almost a third of the way through the year. I know DeForest Buckner said that he's been having issues with his back, but this is kind of a normal thing, and they've got a plan for it. So, yeah, it's just good that they can both stay healthy, and that needs to continue to happen for this Colts team to continue winning games and for this defense to continue playing as well as it has to start the year. North Carolina and Bill Belichick are working on a buyout that has been reported by multiple people. We'll see if or when he gets fired and bought out. It's not surprising. He was never a good talent evaluator in the NFL. And college football is all about talent. And if you watch that North Carolina team play, they could probably win like the American Conference, but they're not winning the ACC or competing in the ACC. For that matter, they've gotten dogged against every Power 4 opponent that they have played against. It's just the reality of it. And when you watch their team, there's just not enough talent. And that paired with the fact that I don't think he ever wanted to be there. in terms of he wanted to be there because he loved college football. Like, he did the whole thing about how his dad coached there and all that kind of stuff. I think that was just lip service. Okay, like, he was interviewing for NFL head coaching jobs 2 hiring cycles ago. He had clauses in his contract with North Carolina for him to get out and go to the NFL if that opportunity ever came. I don't think he ever really wanted to coach college football strictly for being like, I want to coach college football. It was, I want to coach college football so that someone in the NFL would want to hire me maybe. And that just hasn't really worked. Hasn't happened. And now he's going to get fired. And I need you to do me a favor. If anyone brings this up, it says and brings up his legacy and how this is going to negatively impact it, just do me a favor and just smack that person. Because it's not going to impact his legacy in any way, shape, or form. No one talks about Michael Jordan playing for the Wizards. Doesn't happen. No one talks about Emmitt Smith playing for the Cardinals. And no one is going to talk about Bill Belichick coaching North Carolina for 8 games or however long it ends up being 5 years from now. When people in, 10 years are like, who's the Mount Rushmore of NFL head coaches? You know who's going to be on that list? Bill freaking Belichick. If you just did coaches in general, any sport, guess who's probably going to be on that? Bill freaking Belichick. The only thing, legacy-wise, the only thing this did was sway people in the Brady or Belichick argument. That's the only thing that it did. Right? But here's my thing. If you know anything about the NFL, then you understand that quarterback is the most important thing in the NFL. The Commanders were awful. No future, right? They just gotten rid of a terrible owner. And so they bring in a new owner and they draft Jayden Daniels, and now they played in the freaking NFC Championship game last year. Like, that happened. And yes, like those 2 early Super Bowls that the Patriots won with Brady, without a doubt, man. Like, the defense, run the football, not asking Tom Brady to do too much. But the last 4, Tom Brady. Absolutely. And the way that they've looked after the split, I mean, come on now. Brady goes on to win a Super Bowl in Tampa. Bill Belichick drafts Mac Jones. They don't win very many games. He ends up getting fired. Now he's coaching at North Carolina, and he's about to get fired again. So just very, very problematic stuff from our guy, Bill Belichick. And, yeah, John Buzzer, did you just say that the Colts' run defense is just good enough to keep the majority of fans from throwing up? It's kind of spot on. Yeah, that's basically what I said. Yeah, so, yeah, Colts run defense, just barely good enough. Keep winning games, keep getting the lead early, and it'll continue to hold up. And that shouldn't be an issue as the Colts are hosting the 2-3 Arizona Cardinals coming up on Sunday. Can't wait for that game. I love watching Arizona. It's a blast. And yeah, they're 2-3, but they are much better than their record indicates. I've got the numbers to back that up. Coming up at 11. And then at 11:20, Dusty Harrah, Oregon sideline reporter. He's going to join the show, and we're going to talk Indiana versus Oregon.
It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith, to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM. Those are great ways to listen as well. Coming up here in about 20 minutes, Dusty Harrah of 1080 The Fan in Portland and the Oregon Ducks football sideline reporter. He's going to join the show, getting you ready for Indiana and Oregon on Saturday. Big game for the Hoosiers. Real opportunity to finally kind of stamp themselves as like, we are not only here, but we are amongst the best teams in college football. That is what is at stake for them on Saturday. Also, if they win that game, they are 1,000% in the college football playoff, because the rest of their schedule, with the exception of Penn State, is very, very manageable. The Colts have a pretty big game as well. So I've got a buddy. His name's Colt. I love Colts, right? And he loves Star Wars. Loves it, which is, pretty cool. I like Star Wars. Not like my guy Colt, though. My guy Colt, he's seen all of the seen all the movies, seen all of the TV shows. He's seen literally everything related to Star Wars. And he's also read a lot of the books, which, that's for me where I draw the line. Like, I'll watch the TV shows, I'll watch, whatever, movie that comes out that is related to Star Wars. With that being said, the books, I'm good. Pass on that. That is just not, that's not for me, but it's for him. And I like that it's for him. Because whenever I have a Star Wars question, I can just shoot him a text, give him a phone call, and he always has the answer. And it always makes sense, and he explains it really well. And so I'm glad that he likes Star Wars as much as he does, because it just helps me kind of stay in the loop on all the things going on. And I am the same way, but with the Arizona Cardinals. They're like my designated 405 team, like the West Coast team that very rarely plays at 1. That's like the Arizona Cardinals. Like they're my 4 o'clock team. I'm sitting down at 4 o'clock to sit down and watch Arizona. I've watched all of their games this year. I love the roster. And you like this because the Colts play them this Sunday, and I am the guy who can answer pretty much any question you have about the Arizona Cardinals. I love the roster. That is where it all starts for me. Like I was, doing all my, preseason prep work, getting ready for, the stuff that I do over on the My Take Is YouTube channel. You can go and subscribe to that if you want. And I got to the NFC West, and I'm working through everything, and I'm like, geez, the Arizona Cardinals have a lot of really good players. Kyler Murray, he's like a bottom tier 2, top of tier 3 kind of quarterback. Trey Benson and Connor, I'm blanking on his first name, like 2 really good running backs, right? A receiver. It's Marvin Harrison Jr., who everyone wrote off because they're insane. They write him off because he had a couple drops. It's like the dude's played like 19 NFL games. Like let's give the dude a little bit of time. He had 800 receiving yards as a rookie. Like that's a really good number to hit. So, he's a good receiver, and I like Michael Wilson. Zay Jones is quick. Greg Dortch has just kind of become a guy that I'm like, who I like watching play football? Greg Dortch. Dude's just blazing fast. You'll see him return kicks for Arizona. Trey McBride's one of the 5 best tight ends in football. Paris Johnson Jr. he's an awesome left tackle. I like Froholt at center. That's probably just because he played for Arkansas. And so on. Like, there's just a lot of talent and a lot of good players on this Arizona Cardinals offense. And then defensively, it's like, wow, they got really good defensive players too. Josh Sweat, a guy who I think should have been the Super Bowl MVP last year. Like that dude's a stud. Calais Campbell's been doing it for forever. Mac Wilson Sr. is a good linebacker. Zaven Collins, I'll never forget when they drafted him out of Tulsa. Good player. Will Johnson. Rookie corner, when he's played, he's been really good. Budda Baker's been one of the best safeties in football for the last 5 years. It's a lot of good players, and I like Jonathan Gannon as well. And so I run through the roster. I tell you they have all these good players. And then you're like, yeah, Jonathan, but they're 2-3. They're 2-3, but they could easily be 5-0. I'm going to run through their 3 losses, and you tell me the thing that jumps out about this. You ready? They lose to the Seahawks on Thursday Night Football on a game-winning field goal as time expired. Late comeback. They tie it up 20-20. The Seahawks get a really good return. They bring it out to the 40. Sam Darnold completes a pass to Jackson Smith and Jigba, and all of a sudden the Seahawks are in field goal range. Game over. That was their first loss. And then they lose to the 49ers. They lost 15-13 on a game-winning field goal. Mac Jones leads a game-winning drive after taking a safety on the previous possession. The Cardinals were a first down away. Kyler Murray made an average throw. Like, it wasn't a good throw. It wasn't a bad throw either. It was very catchable, like a little out route just past the sticks. Receiver couldn't make the play. They give it back. Mac Jones does what Mac Jones does because, when Mac Jones gets the football with less than 2 minutes to go and a timeout, then, we all know what's going to happen. Cardinals offense just couldn't get it done in that game. And then last week, they blow a big lead, and they lose to the Titans 22-21. They dropped the football at the goal line, a touchdown that would have put them up 28-6. They picked Cam Ward off, then fumbled the football, and ended up being recovered in the Titans' end zone by a Titans player. And that's how they scored their last touchdown of the game to make the game 19-21. And then Cam Ward makes a beautiful throw down the sideline to Calvin Ridley. And the Titans beat the Cardinals on a walk-off field goal. So, yes, the Cardinals are 2-3, but they could very easily be 4-1, 5-0. They're just a couple of plays away, especially when you consider that all 3 losses have come on last-second field goals. So, yes, the Cardinals are 2-3. Yes, the Colts are 6.5-point favorites. But this Cardinals team's tough, and they've been in every game. Are they a great team? No, because I think great teams make the plays late in games necessary to win, and they obviously haven't done that. But they're very capable of competing and being in every game, which means that they're capable of beating everyone, even this current Colts juggernaut that's just scoring points on everybody. And the reason why they've been in every game is because of their defense. They're 12th in takeaways. They're 7th in third down defense. Their pass rush isn't great, but they do have Josh Sweat. They have a good secondary. And Jonathan Gannon does a great job of disguising coverage and tricking quarterbacks and being exotic and all those things. Josh Sweat, that's their premier pass rusher. He's got 5 sacks in 5 games. Calais Campbell has 3. No one else has more than 1 for Arizona. With the way that Bernard Ryman and Braden Smith have performed this year, I've got no worries about slowing down Josh Sweat, even though he is having a pretty good year. Right? But this Cardinals defense is amongst the best in football. The Colts had a lot of success against a good Broncos defense. And it's hard not to have faith in the Colts offense against anyone because I saw them march the football up and down the field on the Denver Broncos. So even though the Cardinals defense is good, even though they're 4th in the NFL in points per game allowed, I still think that the Colts are going to find ways to score points because of just how good this Colts offense has been. Right? And so I just highlighted, what I like about this Cardinals defense. And the reason why they're not winning games is because the offense just hasn't been good enough. Like, they can't run the ball. And Kyler Murray continues to be underwhelming. Kyler Murray is their leading rusher. When your quarterback's your leading rusher through 5 games, that tells you all you need to know about how poorly you're running the football. Trey Benson and James Conner, they're top 2 running backs, both out with injuries. Their current running back can't be trusted. He's the one who dropped the football at the 1. They're 8th in the NFL in yards per carry, which goes against everything I just said. But a lot of that is Kyler Murray's scrambles. They cannot run the football. James Conner, before he got hurt, was averaging 3 yards a carry. It's not very good in 3 games. Trey Benson, they don't have a single running back, player, period. Even Kyler Murray. They don't have a single player averaging more than 40 rushing yards per game. That is pitiful. They cannot run the football. Speaking of Kyler Murray, he hasn't been very good either. He is 22nd in total EPA amongst quarterbacks. And, some people don't know what EPA is. It's a really good, value metric, like WAR, wins above replacement in baseball, tells you how valuable a guy is. EPA is similar. It's estimated points added. So Kyler Murray is 22nd in total EPA. He has played every snap of every game except for the snaps he missed in the third quarter last week against the Titans. Kyler Murray, 22nd in total EPA. Here's how bad he's been. Backup quarterback Andy Dalton, who's played 7 plays all year, has a higher total EPA than Kyler Murray. It's been a rough year for Kyler. He's running around a whole bunch. He's 5th amongst quarterbacks in the NFL in scramble rate. So when he drops back, he wants to run. And it's not necessarily because the Cardinals' offensive line is bad. Kyler Murray just bails out of the pocket really quickly. His internal clock is set to, 1.5 speed. So he's in there for 2 seconds and he's gone. Okay? And that's led to him getting sacked a bunch, right? He's been sacked on 8% of his dropbacks. That's the 7th highest mark in the NFL. He's 24th in success rate. So he's not keeping the Cardinals on schedule. And he's also 28th in yards per attempt. Okay? That's not good. Ross with a great question. So Murray is on track to start. This is me assuming that he's going to be the starter. I know he didn't practice yesterday, but he got hurt in the third quarter against the Titans, and he played the entire fourth quarter. The one thing about it, though, that is interesting and is worth monitoring, Kyler Murray didn't scramble once in that fourth quarter against the Titans. So I think he's going to play. The question is just how healthy is that foot going to be? But he's struggled mightily. Everything Daniel Jones has done well here in Indy, Kyler Murray has done poorly this year in Arizona. So the defense in Arizona, it's giving them chances to win games. The offense just hasn't been good enough to take advantage of it. Kyler Murray, to me, is a much better player than how he's performed to start this season. With that being said, it's tough when you can't run the ball at all. Okay, but with that being said, I've seen Kyler Murray succeed when they couldn't run the ball before. Go back to when Cliff Kingsbury was their head coach. He's got the weapons to be successful, but I do think that this Colts defense is going to do a pretty nice job of making things tough on him because I like the weapons group, like Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride. Like I said, I like Greg Dortch, Zay Jones. It's not the easiest group of guys to cover, but it's definitely not the Rams and Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams and Tutu Atwell. It's not that, but it's also definitely better than the Raiders, who went out there last week without Brock Bowers or their Michael Mayer, their other starting tight end. So the good thing about this week is this is a very winnable game for the Colts. That's why they're a 6.5-point favorite. But I am excited to kind of see Jonathan Edwards and Mekhi Blackmon play corner again. I think we're going to get a better idea for how good those guys are on Sunday, just because this is a slight step up in competition, but it's not like a leap. They're not defending Puka like Xavier Howard had to do. So Lou Anarumo, he's going to do to Kyler Murray, I think, what he's done to every other quarterback in the NFL this year, and that's show them a lot of different looks. If he makes a mistake, the Colts will probably take advantage of it. So they've done a really good job of that this year. I feel like every mistake a quarterback has made has, resulted in the Colts forcing a turnover every game except for the one against the Rams where they dropped 2 interceptions. So we'll see how it goes, but I do really like the Colts on Sunday. I know that Kyler Murray didn't practice yesterday, but he did finish that game against the Titans, so I'd be kind of surprised if he didn't play on Sunday, especially since the new Call of Duty hasn't come out yet. We still got a few weeks until that happens. So Dusty Harrah, sideline reporter, also works at 1080 The Fan in Portland. He is set to join the show coming up here in about 4.5 minutes. He's going to get you ready for Indiana versus Oregon.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM. Indiana going on the road this weekend to Eugene to take on the Oregon Ducks. Dusty Harrah of 1080 The Fan in Portland and the Oregon football sideline reporter joining the show now to kind of help me preview that game. Dusty, what's going on? How are you?
Oh, not much, man. It's good to hear the voice of a Jonathan Smith and the real Jonathan Smith. The one that's up in East Lansing kind of hurt a lot of feelings here in the state of Oregon.
Oh, I bet he did. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but I'm sure he'd like to go back to Oregon State because that time Michigan State, it's not going super well right now. Is Oregon the best team in the country?
Oh, wow. Out of the gate hard. They're one of them, man. I mean, it's really hard right now because when you think of the measuring stick win that each team has right now, you know, Ohio State is the defending national champs, and they've given nobody any reason to think otherwise that they're not the best team in the country. They had to replace coordinators, and they've done so with amazing results so far. They are supremely talented, and, you know, we thought that the measuring stick for them was Texas early in the year. Now that Texas win doesn't look as good. Then we thought Oregon had a measuring stick win against Penn State. And a week later, it doesn't look as good as it did. But I think that at the top of college football, you have a handful of teams. And Oregon is one of them. Ohio State is one of them. Miami, Indiana, for goodness sakes. I mean, they haven't given anybody any reason to think otherwise. Georgia is up there. I mean, there are so many teams in college football right now. Ole Miss looks like they are outstanding, and Lane Kiffin has done it again with another quarterback where, you know, the quarterback whisper that we heard from Lane when he was like in his late 20s, early 30s, getting these shots at head coaching jobs. Lane Kiffin has done that now with several quarterbacks in a row at Ole Miss. There's a lot of really good football teams in college football. I don't know if anybody can honestly tell you who the best team in college football is right now, but I think what's great about the era of college football that we're in is that there are more teams than ever before. It's not like there's two or three teams that you're like, yeah, it's either Bama or Clemson or Georgia who's the best team, and everybody else is kind of playing for scraps. I think there's about 9 teams in college football that you can say, yeah, they could win it. They could get hot and they could go and make a run. Oregon is definitely one of them, but so is Ohio State, Indiana, Ole Miss, Georgia. There's a lot of them.
Dusty Harrah of 1080 The Fan in Portland and the Oregon football sideline reporter joining the show. You're really generous, Dusty. Like you're listing off maybe the best teams in the country, and you throw IU in there. I think I'm just a big believer, and maybe it's because I just haven't shifted. I call it the gap. Like I just feel like there's just through the history of college football, there's like 3 teams that kind of feel like they're better than everyone else, and then there's a pretty sizable gap. I think this year it's Ohio State, Miami, and Oregon. And is there any part of you that is just like scared of Indiana? Because I'll be honest, like I don't think Indiana has much of a chance in this game. So if Indiana does worry you, what about them does?
Well, I've been a long Fernando Mendoza apologist when he was at Cal because I really liked him. I liked him when he was a young quarterback at Cal. I saw the flashes that he had. I have been a fan of Fernando Mendoza. I think he's got that it factor, and he can make all the throws. He's athletic. And then Curt Cignetti he's a winner, man. He just wins. Now, when you look at the talent gaps in the recruiting rankings, has Indiana struggled with the teams that have recruited at a higher level over multiple years? Yeah, they have, and that's legitimate. But I also look at it as Indiana from the aspect of, you know, I look on social media, and social media is never a good indicator of what a fan base is, because you get the worst of every fan base is the most vocal on social media. But, there is the aspect of Indiana fans are coming at Oregon like Oregon wasn't them 20 years ago, right? Like 20 years ago, Oregon was this team that nobody gave enough credit to, and they never could get over the hump, and they can never win a big game, and there's just more talented teams out there. Well, eventually, Oregon started beating teams like that, and it doesn't just happen, right? You build up, and you slowly and steadily start getting more and more marquee wins under your belt. And really, that was Oregon 20 years ago. And then they ended up turning the corner and playing for a national championship in the 2010 season. Now, that's where I go. If you have the coach, if you have some talented players, and they're at the skill positions, look, you can catch someone on the jaw and you can win. And that's what Indiana has. Like, for the longest time, Oregon had to mask their deficiencies of depth up front on both lines of scrimmage. But they always had skill guys. They always had a quarterback. They always had a couple receivers, and their running backs are always great. Look at this Indiana team. They've got a quarterback who's pretty damn good. You've got a double-headed monster in the backfield with Black and Hemby. You've got Surratt and Cooper on the outside at wide receiver. And you sit there and you go, all right, if you can catch a team on the chin early and you jump on them, you're going to give yourself a chance. So I think Indiana does have a chance. Is Oregon the team that is recruited better over the last 5 years? Absolutely. Do they have more depth? Yes, they do. But at the same time, this Indiana team, I think, is where Oregon was, and I can see that from where Oregon was 20 years ago, where people just don't give them the credit that they deserve. They have lost 2 games in the last 2 seasons. That's pretty dang impressive. And does the talent say Oregon has an advantage? Yes. But eventually Indiana's going to get over a hump. And I think that, I hope it's not this week for my sake, but it is I'm never going to say, no, you're not going to do it, because you got the coach and you got the skills.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like, which college football is a little different now with the transfer portal. You can rebuild a little quicker, but still, like, to garner interest from the top transfers, like, it helps when you win a bunch of games. And, last year when they went on the road to Ohio State, it wasn't surprising that they got blown out the way they did. Same thing with the playoff game against Notre Dame. This year, I'm not expecting it to look like that. Like, I think Indiana hangs in there a little bit, but like you said, like, the depth of Oregon, the trenches, and to Indiana's credit, I think they're much better in the trenches this year compared to last year. But I do think that that's going to wind up being the difference. And you were talking about, skill players, once again, joined by Dusty Harrah of 1080 The Fan in Portland and the Oregon football sideline reporter. You're talking about skill positions, and you brought up Mendoza, who we love here, by the way. Like, from the moment he committed, everyone's like, all right, Indiana's going to be really good again. I'm not convinced he's better than Dante Moore, and that's probably slighted because I watched him go on the road to Penn State and win. What are just kind of your thoughts on watching him play, because you've probably watched him more than anyone else here has?
I think that when you look at this quarterback matchup and you say, you don't think he's as good as Dante Moore, I don't know if there's very many quarterbacks in college football right now that are playing better than Dante Moore, if anybody, because he's got a mastery of the system. But with Fernando Mendoza, he's a guy that he's a quick decision maker. And I think that when you look at and this is kind of always what he had when he was at Cal, was he had to create through chaos. And when the pressure's coming right when you get the ball on the snap, you've got to be able to make that decision quickly. And he was able to do that to varied levels of success because of the fact that if you don't have 2 receivers of the caliber of Surratt and Cooper, well, it's going to be a heck of a lot harder. But when you look at his quick decision-making, look no further than when they throw those RPO glance routes. And it is Mendoza puts the ball in, pulls it, and how quickly he can get that ball out of the running back's belly and to that little seam route. That's the separator for him. And that's what you could see it in flashes, but it was never you saw it with consistency. I think he is a smart quarterback. I think he is more athletic than what people will give him credit for, that haven't watched him a lot. And I think that it's just hard for a guy to go from Cal to Indiana, where it was like, yeah, Cal had a talent deficiency. And people think that Indiana is this school that doesn't have talent, even though the transfer portal and your coach would tell you otherwise. And if you watch this team with your own two eyes, yeah, they have a lot more talent than you think. But I've always been impressed with Fernando Mendoza's ability to always stay ahead of the game between the ears. And that's a really hard thing to do when the guys around you weren't as talented as the teams you were going up against.
I completely agree, especially your comment on Mendoza being more athletic than people realize. And part of that is, especially people out here in like the Eastern time zone, very few people staying up till 11 p.m. to watch Cal play. And this year, they cruised through their non-conference schedule. And like when you're crushing Kennesaw State, like you don't need for Mendoza to run around. We saw it a little bit against Iowa, but I think this is going to be kind of the first game where we really kind of get to see his legs being used, just because this Oregon defense is nasty. I've got another Oregon quarterback question for you. Once again, joined by Dusty Harrah of 1080 The Fan in Portland, also the Oregon football sideline reporter. Bo Nix, kind of not a great time at Auburn. He shows up at Oregon, and all of a sudden he's great. Gabriel was good at Oklahoma. He goes to another level when he transfers to Oregon. Dante Moore had a pretty rough time at UCLA when he was a freshman, transfers up to Oregon. He sits for a year, and now he's doing this. What is it about Oregon's system and the coaching staff that has kind of helped them bring these really talented quarterbacks to their full potential?
It sounds really cliche, but you talk to guys that are in the program, you talk to guys once they get out of it, and it's the same messaging through and through. Dan Lanning talks about connectedness all the time. And they have these things that they call get reels on Wednesdays, where they put guys into groups, and they're not in your position groups. They're not guys that are from the same background as you or the same area as you. And they call them get reels to figure out your why and what you're playing for. And it doesn't seem like anything that could translate to the field, but it 100% has for this Oregon team, in that they instill a trust and a belief in all of their guys, not just the quarterbacks, because we've seen it in other position groups as well. I think if you look at the interior of the defensive line, one of the guys who had one of the best games of the season was Bear Alexander, who's a defensive tackle who was at USC last year. The year before that, he was at Georgia. And then I think he went to 3 or 4 different high schools as well. And it was always like, yeah, if you can get Bear to be locked in, then, you'll get a pretty special player. Well, he's turning out to be that for Oregon. You have that aspect of it where there is a care and a belief off of the field. But on the field, I think that Will Stein is one of the brightest offensive minds in football, period. And the offensive coordinator, he came from UT San Antonio. Before that, he was a high school football coach in Texas at Lake Travis High School, where he was the offensive coordinator for Hudson Card, who was at Texas, then transferred up to Purdue. And Garrett Wilson was his wide receiver, now at the Jets. Like he was at a Texas high school powerhouse. And Will was a quarterback at Louisville under Bobby Petrino. He was the starter, and then a guy named Teddy Bridgewater came in and took his job when Will got hurt. But Will is just incredibly bright, and he is a great way of simplifying the way that the offense operates. And that year last year, where Dante Moore showed a lot of maturity, going from a guy who is a starting true freshman at UCLA to go and take a back seat and sit behind Dylan Gabriel, he showed a lot of maturity. But the thing that I was most impressed about is that year of kind of guidance and nurturing from Dylan Gabriel. Dante Moore took all of that to heart, and he took that process of preparation from a guy who was in college for 6 years, and he learned a lot from him on how you handle the week leading up to a game, how you handle a night before a game and what you're looking for when you're watching film. And he got a mastery of Oregon's offense. And I think that 1 year meant a ton for just from the preparation standpoint for Dante Moore, to where everybody knew that coming out of high school, Dante Moore had the skills to be a successful quarterback. But he's put all of those skills into function now as a starting quarterback at Oregon. And I think it has to do with the staff. I think it absolutely has to do with Dante Moore, though, and kind of the growth that we've seen out of him as a person.
Joined by Dusty Harrah of 1080 The Fan in Portland and the Oregon football sideline reporter, getting you ready for Oregon versus Indiana on Saturday. Two more questions for you, Dusty, and I'll let you go. What's Oregon's biggest strength?
I will say Oregon's biggest strength right now is, oh boy, that's a good question, man. It is, well, first of all, the balance offensively, I think, is the biggest strength. They got dudes all over the field, and that's what makes it a really hard question, because you could go to the offensive line that's only given up 1 sack. You could go to the quarterback or the receivers that have just shined, into Corian Moore, who's a true freshman phenom on the outside, 6 running backs that all get touches. But it's the balance of it. I mean, if you look at game by game, there is balance to where it's almost like 20 yards of difference rushing to pass on any given day. And the balance keeps you on your heels. And so I'll say the balance on the offensive side is the biggest strength that they have, because you can't just load up and say, we're stopping the run this week. You can't say, hey, we're going to drop 7 and we're going to sit back and defend the pass. They have extreme balance, and they keep you on your heels offensively. Defensively, and I think that it is their edges. And the fact that you've seen the interior of the defensive line with Bear Alexander, who I mentioned earlier, and then Amari Washington, who is a physical freak. He's 6'4", 320 pounds, and has a 34-inch vertical and runs a 4.8 in the 40. At 6'4", 320 pounds, he is just an absolute freak of nature. But it's Tion Gray and Terrence Green, who have both emerged from the defensive tackle. It is their defensive line that creates a lot of havoc for the edges in Mateo Uiagalelei and Tatum Tuioti, who are 2 of the best that do it in college football.
Uiagalelei is a monster. He's just, every time I watch Oregon play, like you know where Uiagalelei is all the time, and you don't even have to look for him. Like he's always around the ball. Like you said, just an absolute monster. Last question for you, Dusty, and I'll let you go. So every time someone gets fired, everyone's like, oh, they're just going to go hire Dan Lanning. And that's absurd. I do want to ask, though, and I feel like this question is kind of morbid, so I apologize. Like, from my understanding, a lot of the money that Oregon has in the NILs, because Phil Knight is just kind of like, blank check, Dan, go get me a championship. He is 87 years old. What kind of happens after Phil Knight passes to Oregon football?
That's a great question. I think that's a question that a lot of people have, and it's one that there's a lot of unknown, right? Phil Knight and what he's meant to the University of Oregon, the state of Oregon in general. Like, he's a guy who is an Oregonian. He started Nike out of the trunk of his car down in Eugene, and he's kept his company in Oregon and up in the Portland area where the Nike World headquarters are. He has always tried to set Oregon on a path of success, and a long-term path of success. What that looks like, I don't know. And those are the questions that we just have no idea about. But as far as like keeping Dan Lanning, this is a guy that moved around a lot. Like, he has, 3 boys, and they're all in formative ages right now where they're all going through school. And he's said it a lot that, they've moved around, and they've moved around because Dad has got his job and he's been successful at it. And there's stability here at Oregon. And Phil Knight, everybody looks at as he is Oregon, and make no bones about it, he is. But I think when you look at the athletic director, Rob Mullins, the connection that he and Lanning have, when you look at the fact that Phil isn't the only booster at Oregon either.
Yeah.
And that gives a lot of money. I think there is a lot of credence to Dan Lanning has been around enough, and he's seen enough programs from Pitt, Memphis, Arizona State, Alabama, Georgia, that there is an understanding that you don't have to keep 100 boosters happy here. There's a handful of them that you do. And obviously Phil Knight is number one in that. And that guy is been amazing to the University of Oregon. But outside of that, it's not the pool of boosters that you really have to. And, again, I don't know what the future looks like, but, knowing Phil Knight and kind of how he's always planned for the long term. And I would imagine that there is a long-term plan for Oregon's success when you look at all the things he's done around campus already to ensure that, including, the new indoor facility that is, if you guys haven't seen it or you don't know what it is, they broke ground over the summer on a indoor practice facility that is going to be state of the art. And they're staying ahead of the game in the arms race once again with what that looks like. And go ahead and Google it, because it's pretty impressive what they're building on the campus. And that is, one of those next signs of the long-term success. It's being set up and in place by Phil and his wife, Penny, who are incredible philanthropists in the area.
Okay, that all makes sense. I figured that they had some sort of plan. You don't build a company like Nike without knowing how to plan. So, that all makes a lot of sense. Dusty, thanks for your time, man.
Hey, appreciate you, man.
That is Dusty Harrah. You can check him out on X at Dusty_Harrah. Does a great job up in Portland, covering the Trailblazers and also looking obviously at Oregon as well, where he is the sideline reporter. When we come back in about 4 minutes, college football. I'm just in a college football mood today. Bill Belichick's about to get fired by North Carolina. My thoughts on that and Joe Flacco to the Bengals in 4 minutes.
If it's in today's sports world, it's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith. You can follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on that Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 a.m. Big thank you to Dusty Harrah for taking some time to talk a little IU versus Oregon. You're not going to get a better breakdown of the Ducks than that. I can tell you that much. That being said, we are going to have Shehan Jayaraja on the show tomorrow to talk a little bit more about it. Huge game for Indiana, right? A big opportunity to kind of stamp their arrival and say, hey, look, like we can compete at the top of college football in year 2 of the Curt Cignetti era. So Indiana, pays off going out, hiring a slightly older coach in Curt Cignetti from James Madison. Obviously, Oregon thriving after hiring Dan Lanning. And then you got, North Carolina. It was like, let's hire NFL legend Bill Belichick. And let's see how that goes. And it has not gone well. Hasn't gone well for them at all in any way, shape, or form. They're actually about to probably fire him, and they're, reportedly they are negotiating a buyout right now. And I mean, could it have gone any worse? No, it couldn't have. And it's not really that surprising either. I don't think Bill Belichick wanted to be there. And Bill Belichick, the one knock on him, and what I believe to be, the reason why he's no longer coaching in the NFL was his inability to evaluate talent. He wanted to be the guy who made the draft picks and did those things. And if you look at his history of drafting players, it makes Chris Ballard look like a genius. Seriously. I mean, it's really, really bad. I mean, it is. And so, and then when you look at his roster, it's not very good. He didn't do a good job of bringing in talented guys to play what he called, quote, the 33rd NFL team, which is just laughable at this point. And so he didn't bring in talented guys. And then you pair that with the fact that he didn't want to be there. There's clauses in his contract for him to leave for an NFL job if he gets offered one. He was entering for NFL head coaching jobs 2 hiring cycles ago. I mean, I don't think he wanted to be there. This was simply a means to an end. It's like, all right, I'm gonna go to North Carolina for a year. They're gonna pay me a whole bunch of money, and then I'm gonna leave to go coach in the NFL because that's really what he wants to do. And that opportunity probably not going to come to him after this complete and total debacle in North Carolina. And I need you to do me a favor. If someone says that this is going to impact Bill Belichick's legacy, you just walk up to him, you say, this is from the real Jonathan Smith Show, and then you just smack him. Because this doesn't matter to his legacy at all. Just like how Michael Jordan playing for the Wizards didn't matter and Emmitt Smith playing running back for the Cardinals didn't matter. No one talks about Michael Jordan playing for the Wizards, and no one talks about Emmitt Smith playing for the Cardinals. No one's going to talk about North Carolina being at North Carolina for a year. It'll be just like the Michael Jordan and Emmitt Smith thing, where like when you see Michael Jordan in a Wizards jersey, you're like, oh, that looks weird. When you see Emmitt Smith in a Cardinals jersey, you're like, oh, that's weird. When you see Bill Belichick in that Carolina blue, and be like, oh, that was weird. Remember that? 8 games, head coach, and then he got fired. But hey, he won 6 Super Bowls, and that's ultimately what matters. When we do Mount Rushmores of head coaches, Bill Belichick is going to be at the top of every single one because he won 6 Super Bowls. The only thing that this has done is just kind of make the majority opinion that the dynasties in New England were more because of Brady than Belichick, because Tom Brady clearly won the breakup. He won a Super Bowl. He's calling games now, and and all those things. And so that's just the reality of it. He won the breakup. And so in this tenure at North Carolina has solidified that. So it's just part of me feels I don't feel bad for Belichick. I'll never feel bad for Bill Belichick. I won't. Sorry, but I do kind of feel bad for North Carolina because you run out all this money to bring in this guy that you think is going to turn your program around, and then it just did not happen. It's the reality of it. Oh man, what a day! Joe Flacco, by the way, he's playing for the Bengals now. I feel like the Bengals could have done better. Joe Flacco got benched, and now the Bengals are like, yeah, that's the guy that we want. It's the guy who's going to lead us to the playoffs. I think they should have gone after Jameis Winston or Kirk Cousins. I think both of those guys would have made a little more sense than Joe Flacco, especially Jameis because he's the most athletic of the three. So I think Jameis Winston and Joe Flacco I think are really similar. Guys who can put up big numbers, but can also throw 4 interceptions in a game. And I just would have taken the younger guy who's a third-string quarterback and probably didn't cost much more than what it cost to get Joe Flacco. So, I don't know. I'd have gone with Jameis Winston, but what are you going to do about it? That's going to do it here on The Real Jonathan Smith Show. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to tune into the show, no matter how you tuned in. I love doing the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know there's a lot of different places to get your sports talk. No Dan Dockett show today or tomorrow. I will be back on the air tomorrow, though, from 10 to noon. Shehan Jayaraja, he is set to join the show at 11 o'clock tomorrow. He'll do a great job helping me kind of get you ready for that college football weekend. We're going to have a ton of bets. Baseball still going on tonight. Go Cubs. Let's go, man. Let's just force a game 5 and see what happens after. I'll talk to you tomorrow starting at 10 a.m.